Hello. I did my project on how gender affirming care saves lives. And within my project, you're going to hear me talking about the stigmas and misconceptions that trans and non-binary people face within our society. First, I wanted to mention how important reliable sourcing is. So, an example of this would be using like .org websites or .edu websites. I do know right now that .gov websites have had information taken from them, so use those with caution. Also, looking up who wrote the article. So, for example, um, in one of the summaries that I did, it was a contrasting view on gender affirming care. And in the title, it stated that the person had their PhD, but did not state what they had their PhD in, and wrote an article about gender affirming care, but does not have an education in mental health psychology or any of that. So even though somebody might have a PhD, MD, whatever it may be, the information that they could be writing about might have nothing to do with what they're educated in. So always look at that. And then AI as well. I want to first mention that AI is harmful for the environment and not always reliable. So if you're Googling things about, minorities and an AI answer pops up, it could be false. So I really suggest monitoring what you're looking at and making sure that the information that you're getting is factual. Um, Gender norms and cultural differences. Within every culture, there's always been different gender norms. So not every culture has the men that are going out working, making all of the money, and the women are staying home being stay-at-home wives. Like, that's not what happens in every culture. The globe is vast, and to put such a strict guideline for how women, men, theys, and thems are supposed to act is constricting and doesn't allow people the freedom to explore with their identity. And a lot of these beliefs come from westernized ideals. So like how women and men are supposed to act the ladylike thing. Men are supposed to be working, blue collar jobs while women are working in retail, making way less money. Like that's not normal in every single culture. And in fact, that's not how America was before it was colonized either. So respecting that is very important to me. And knowing that this information got wiped out due to colonization is really important. So transgender people date back to the 15th century. So I think that's really important to know. And I feel like the Bible has a huge construct of the opinions that people have on transgendered people or even people in the LGBTQ community, honestly. The word homophobia wasn't placed into the Bible until 1940. So the 1930s, 1940s era, the KKK and white supremacy was heavily involved with religion. So evangelical Christianity actually rooted itself from that. There is a ton of racism and prejudice intertwined within Christianity and Catholicism, and it is been falsified. The Bible has been proven to be false. Science is something that is real and tangible, and that is something that we can see, and trans people are backed by scientific value. Um, the Bible, like I was saying, it's harmful in many ways, especially in regard to the LGBTQ community. The roles on women and how they should act, the way men should act, and it's also not the original text. Like I said, science is something that we can prove, although I know that 90% of the world is religious. However, colonization brought Christianity and Catholicism to America. So, if colonization was one of the worst things that have happened, why would we continually support that? That's where my beliefs are. What does gender affirming care look like? There are so many ways that gender affirming care can look, and there's tons of misconceptions about it. Gender affirming care can save lives by 50%. And gender affirming care also improves 70% of lives when it comes to suicidal ideations, depression, and anxiety. And I understand that there is a lot of ill information out there, false information out there about puberty blockers not being reversible, and that is not true. Puberty blockers are reversible, and puberty blockers are not given to children. They're not just given out like candy at Halloween. Puberty blockers are given to individuals who have gone through extensive psychological evaluation with therapists, psychologists, numerous professionals to see if this is the correct avenue for this person specifically. Um, Gender in regard to, say, puberty blockers. If you're a male and you don't want your testicles to drop and you do not want to form masculine, like a masculine chest, you can take puberty blockers to prevent yourself from going through that. And what that does is causes less gender dysphoria. And that's where depression and anxiety and suicide rates go up, is with gender dysphoria. It can also be something as simple as allowing a biological female to cut her hair in a mullet and perm it and not wear makeup and wear more masculine fitting clothing. These things are not harmful to children. These things are not harmful to society. Therefore, these identity builders should be accepted by parents and support systems because it allows the child to feel freedom, and you're not hurting the child mentally, physically, emotionally. It is reversible with the puberty blockers. So, and that's not always the choice for people. So puberty blockers aren't always the number one thing that trans and non-binary people are doing. Um, like I was saying, puberty blockers, they're not permanent. Um, Gender dysphoria causes depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideations. It also causes death. Um, they just often feel like parts of their bodies don't match with how they want to represent themselves. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with this. Um, if a man wants to wear female shoes, there's nothing incorrect about that. This gender norm construction has been from westernized ideals. So we need to get that out of our heads and understand that people need to be able to express their identity with freedom and without the worry of being killed for it or, experiencing depression or anxiety. Gender is a galaxy and sexuality, it's an ocean. There's no black or white or gray. It's every color of the rainbow, every every color you can think of, it's there. Um, I know that a lot of people sexualize the community. I don't want my kids to be subjected to sexual behavior. My child shouldn't know that there can be families with two moms or three moms and one dad. Let the kids be kids. The issue with this is, why are you sexualizing us? So, um, the reason why you think that your kid is being taught about sex is because you think that people that are in the LGBTQ community are not represented the same way that straight people are, that we don't love the same. And that's just not true. And that issue comes from adults and people thinking this way. And I'm here to squash that. That's not true. I understand that porn does sexualize gay, lesbians, and trans people. They also sexualize intersex people too, and intersex is another is the I in LGBTQIA2S plus. Those are people who are born with both parts. So somebody could be born with testes and a vagina. Somebody could be born with breasts and a penis with no testicles. These people are called intersex. They're born this way. Oftentimes, what happens is when these children are born, their parents decide if they want something to be amputated. So, say a child is born with a vagina and a penis, and the parents decide, I'm gonna have his penis removed. The problem with this is that, say the child has a penis, obviously, and he has testicles. So when the child goes through puberty and testicles drop, and the child is wondering what's going on, that poses a problem too. Also, that's a whole nother topic, but that is what the I is in LGBTQIA, and there's a lot of people who have a lot of misconceptions about them too. It is something they're born with, they cannot choose, just like every letter of the alphabet, where I don't choose to be a lesbian. Um, Trans people don't choose to be trans. We don't choose to be discriminated against. Like, that's not something somebody chooses to do. It's not quirky or cute. So like that ideal is very stigma. It's it's bad. Some of the suicide and violence rates, Black trans women are attacked more than any other denomination in the community at all. They're more attacked, they're more violence against them, they're sexually assaulted more. And it's simply because oppression, colonization, slavery. The media does not focus on African American people or Black people, brown people. Um, it's disheartening, it's disgusting, it's dehumanizing, it's foul. So also within the foster care system, there's a huge underrepresentation for trans children. So within the foster care system, when you have a foster parent who has a child that is trans or non-binary, there's not often a lot of education about that or how to handle a foster child that's like that. So that poses an issue too. And they need to be supported. And people that don't get gender affirming care, they're 50% more likely to commit suicide. So regardless of, you know, trans people being something that you support, with they have gender affirming care, which is just a basic human right, their death rate, like the suicide rates go down by 50%. So what is more worth it? Um, Westernized society has placed so many stigmas revolving around trans and non-binary people. I've touched on that a lot. It's been monitored by politics, it's been monitored by the government in a negative way. It's also not just for trans and non-binary folks. Heterosexual and cis people also need gender affirming care. Some people that are born biological males have a lack of testosterone, and so they might need an extra shot of testosterone to maintain their hormones. This is considered gender affirming care. And I also wanted to address pronouns are not something that's new. Addressing someone by their proper pronouns is a way to support them and they feel safe and supported in your care. If you can call the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America, then I don't really see why it's hard for you to call biological Chad Christina. It's not difficult. You're just being rude. So, science should overrule society. However, social media plays a huge, huge issue with this. Our phones, the information we get, it's not always accurate. And even news sources aren't accurate. There's Spanish news sources that are owned by Trump. So be careful of that. It seems like even when the facts are presented to people, it's very hard for them to get out of that way of thinking. So I don't want to call people stubborn, but it's like if you have the facts in front of you, like the way to to philosophically argue is to come up with a common agreement in the end. So when you're having a discussion about things like that, you would think that people would find a commonality in there. I don't see that happening very often. Um, the analysis of this presentation, you should now understand what gender affirming care looks like, that it does save lives. Depression and anxiety are harmful factors when transgender nonconforming people are gender nonconforming folks have access to the proper gender affirming care. The 50% suicide rate going up, the negative ideals, science has proven trans people to be existing, and gender roles have looked different in every culture, and America has a hard time accepting change and progression. So, thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed. Have a good winter break.